Asia's top bankers recently gathered in Bangkok for the Asian Banking and Finance Forum on Profitability Management. Stay tuned to learn some of the tricks of the trade and how Asia's top banks are maximizing customer profitability measurement and performance.
Customer profit by its nature is across the bank wide, so you have to bring in risk, finance, marketing, operations in order to generate the figure, and this organisational challenge of getting a collaborative effort is probably one of the major barriers. I think the second area which slows down the process is not having a clear understanding of where profitability is used once you actually calculate the measure. And so I think the easiest answer to this is profitability should be used in your day-to-day processes down in the front line. You should think of customer profitability metrics being used in the branch, being used in the call centre, being used by collections, all as part of the daily process of managing customers.
Banks are obviously, there's a large priority being set on consolidation of data in the centralized strategy. So, I mean, if it's not every major bank, if they haven't already done so, they certainly have a strategy as part of their plan to consolidate the data, to try to centralize the data and get it into a format that can then be deployed and leveraged throughout the organization.
Research conducted by Asian Banking and Finance magazine found that employee incentive programs were the #1 driver of an organizational approach to profitability. And in terms of business priorities for the next 2 years, CRM was the most important priority for banks, followed by sales performance management, then customer segmentation. Now stay tuned for highlights from the panel discussion. I'll kick off with the first question. We've seen some interesting things on the profitability model side, and also just on how companies can use data. Tony, I promised the folks here today you'd give some more specific examples of lately what are some of the ways people are using their CRM and their data warehousing to come up with even more innovative ways to try and market to their customers, be it event-based or however. What are some other ones that you're seeing?
My favourite one at the moment is people are now calculating individual prices for customers dynamically. So you don't see a lot of it in advertising, but certainly Royal Bank of Canada, if you walk into the branch in the front end screen, it will calculate an individual price for you based on your profitability. So what it's doing is offering margins. So for example, you'll get a 0.25% interest rate benefit if you're a certain type of customer. I think that's just awesome that they're confident enough about their ability to calculate value and understand risk that they can offer individual pricing. I think it's the most outstanding one. Then a couple of more left of field ones that I like. I think Steve mentioned one, but in Asia in particular, the first thing that's done, and we've seen this a couple of times recently, is repricing the transaction accounts based on a behavioural view of profitability. That one single thing, I think it is a marketing exercise as much as a finance exercise, but that single repricing, looking at how you get full value for the transactions that you're doing, is a hugely profitable exercise if done right. It's probably the single fastest way I know you can make money in banking, providing you understand exactly who you're discriminating your pricing for and against. Another great one is in China, Bank of China cards. They calculate an individual probability of default on all their credit cards. And in China, if you do a transaction on your credit card, you get an SMS straight after it. Okay, that's a bit of a pain that you have to send an SMS to every credit card customer. But once they have the probability of default thing, they can then vary. So if you know you're with a low risk customer, they were no longer sending SMSs every time that the transactions were done. Very simple, very clean, and easy one to do. And then again, it's not CRM, but I think it's a great one. The defining moment for your customer profitability model is when somebody gets paid by it or on it. And think about this, like, I don't know what the level of interest in your organisation is, about calculating customer value. But the moment the head of the branch network realises that his bonus is calculated by the customer contribution model, there is an astounding level of interest and involvement in the calculation process. And I think that was for me was an amazing lesson, that it becomes real when you're going to pay somebody on it. And when that realisation comes across people, all of a sudden you've got everyone wanting to be at that table, from you had no friends to you were the most popular person in the bank. And if I was going to go down the path, one of the things I'd start with is, okay, let's find an area where we're going to pay somebody, because instantly, and if it's the CEO that's getting part of his measurement off it, instantly you'll have everybody's attention.
Okay, the number one reason that people who responded to our survey said they want to calculate individual customer profitability is to incentivize employees. Now, can you give us your experience on which employees need to be incentivized and how? For example, I would have assumed it's just the sales staff. I've heard some suggestion maybe it should be the branch manager because he'll take better care of the high customers. Maybe it should be the CEO. How much does that come into conversation? Where? What are some examples?
Anyone who has an accountability. So if you go through your organisation, at most organisations you'll have accountability structures. We were working with a bank in Taiwan recently where they had to define their KPIs in terms of its impact on profitability. And therefore those KPIs were measured, and the profitability model, and in many cases it's not necessarily the profit number that's taken from the model. It might be the business row, the business process in the model that you were responsible for. So if you were the collections manager, and because I quote that one because when I interviewed the guy, he said, collections, don't have anything to do with profitability. I said, oh, I beg to differ. There are many things that you can do. For example, preventative intervention in a process before a person needs to go to collection. So don't wait, intervene, lower the cost of collection costs. So my view is anybody who is accountable for any form of financial outcome can be incentivised on a profit model outcome. Not necessarily just the number in the bottom right hand corner, but it's fairly obvious that relationship managers, branch managers, anyone who's got profitability responsibility already, then they're the candidates.